Oh, you're good.
Hey,
Welcome to the Round Table with Bill, and I have a special guest today, independent author and the creator of the County Line horror books, Bryce Gibson. How you doing, sir?
I'm pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man.
Cool.
So I think you remember we met last October at the
At the
Southern Gothic
yeah,
Festival.
at the Southern Gothic Festival. Yeah, yep, in
Yeah. Yep.
Canton. Yep.
Yep. Yeah. So and I just wanted to basically what this is going to be is it's going to be kind of like an interview, but also kind of like a conversation. We'll just talk about some things and
Right.
and let people get to know you and how you got into writing and all that good stuff.
All right.
So the first question I was going to ask, so how did you come up with the idea of the county line horror?
Um. Well, the name County Line Horror. My wife actually came up with it. I'd been writing for a while before I actually launched the County Line Horror brand. Um. Well, I mean, I'd been publishing for a while. And I just needed a good name that would kind of fit the tone and the themes of my books. And my wife threw County Line Horror out there, and that's kind of what stuck with that.
Nice. That's pretty cool because and I love how you when you do like your little like your advertisements for your bundles and stuff, and you're talking about like rural areas and the hits at home and all that stuff, and so
Right,
that's pretty neat how you kind of use that to tie everything in. So that's pretty neat.
right, yeah.
Yep. And I also like you're actually from what county?
Well, I live in Aiken County. I'm originally from Saluda County, a small town called Ward. I live in
Oh,
Aiken.
okay.
Yeah, I live in Aiken County now. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's funny because when I wrote my book for my Thompson Creek book, my short story book there,
Uh,
I used a lot of the places that were familiar to me around town and around home and all that stuff.
right,
So
right. Yeah, yeah.
you know, and basically I'm from Chesterfield County, so you
Oh,
got like
okay.
Chesterfield, Sherrall. Yep.
Right, right, right,
Uh,
right.
yep. So but most of your stuff is like you don't use the original town names. You just kind of you use the town, but you just change the name, right?
I've done some of both. I have some of both. I would say most of mine are going to be in fictional towns, but some of them are in real towns. I've gone back to Edgefield a couple of times, written a couple in Edgefield. Um,
Yeah.
I've got one that's in Saluda. Um, yeah, I mean they are all set in South Carolina right now. But some of them are in real towns, some fictional towns, and so I've got a few that kind of blend real towns and fictional towns.
Yeah. Yep. I understand that. See, I lived in New York for a little while,
Uh-huh.
up near Syracuse,
Hmm.
and in a kind of a small town there called Auburn, and
Okay.
anyway, so I could like it. So when I write, I can also not only use my hometown, but I could also use places and experiences from there too. So that kind of gives me a little bit of a kind of break of where I wanted to write my
Right.
stuff, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? So I noticed that you just put out a sequel to Cat House.
Yeah. Cat House 2, that is my newest one. It's the first sequel that I've written, the first true sequel. I've got a couple that kind of have a couple things that kind of blend together. I mean, all of mine are standalone books, but Cat House 2 is the first true sequel that I've done. Um, and going back to what you were saying about the towns, that one is set in a fictional town called Pennington, um, originally when I wrote the first Cat House, it was originally going to be Lexington, but I changed the name of that one to Pennington. But that is the first actual sequel that I've done. I don't know that I'll do it again. um, it was a very, very different writing experience from what I'm used to. Just trying to make it so that it all made sense. I wanted it to, even though it is a sequel, it picks up shortly after the events of the first one with the same characters. And even though it is a sequel, I wanted it to still be where somebody could pick it up and kind of read it as a standalone if they wanted to. So it was really hard to get to write all that so that it would still made sense, because so much of that book hinges on what happened in the first one. So it was hard to write all of that where it would still make sense if somebody picked it up and just, I mean, I don't know why you would pick up a book called Cat House 2 without reading the first one, but if somebody were to do that, you know, I still wanted it to make sense. But yeah, it is my first sequel. I know I said I probably wouldn't, I don't know if I would do it again. I'm kind of serious about that, kind of joking about it as well. But but no, I'm actually working on a Cat House 3, so it'll be out sometime next year. So
nice. My mom liked that book a lot. She's a big cat fan, so she
right,
enjoyed that pretty good.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That Cat House, that one is the first time that I've written one that it was based on something that I had a dream about. So
Oh
that's the
man,
first, yeah, that's the first time I've done that. So
nice. I tell you, if you ever write a sequel, I hope you write one to this one. Hurts Like the Devil.
Hurts Like the Devil.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, when you the way you ended that, it almost kind of, I mean, you ended it to where it could be just an ending, but it also to me feels like you could like pick up, say, 6 months later and
right,
like, you know,
right,
start something, you know.
right. Yeah, and that one, I mean, without giving anything away, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody that has not read Hurts Like the Devil. But well, that one's got a couple of big twists in it. Probably one of the biggest twists that I've written so far. But and the ending of that's typically not the way I like to end books, or I mean, even books that I'm reading or movies. That's typically not the way I prefer things to end. But for somehow it kind of felt right with that one. Um,
Yeah.
so, and I have a kind of a sequel idea to that, but I don't know that it will be done. So,
Okay. I understand that, man. It's hard to like you
right,
write something and you want to do something else with it, but it's like, man, you know, it's um and then how like you said to make it all kind of flow and have it to make it to where it makes sense is another whole thing in itself, you know.
right, yeah, yep, yep.
So so basically another question I was just gonna ask. So what inspired you to basically become a writer? Do you have like a certain author or
Well, I've always written since I was little, and I've always kind of actually even I have some stories that I wrote when I was a kid that were on notebook paper. I drew the covers for them, stapled them together. Um, and looking back on those, I mean, I can tell now that I was those stories that I wrote when I was a kid that they were really inspired by like R.L. Stein and Fear Street and that kind of stuff. Um, so I would say R.L. Stein, Fear Street, those kind of teen horror from back in the '90s would have a big influence on what I write. Um, but as far as reading goes, and really my interest in writing, I have kind of a wide variety of reading that I like. I by no means stick to just horror, and I try to with my writing. I mean, I know they're marketed as horror. I do try to work some um, I call it dark drama, that kind of thing, family drama, and that kind of stuff in there. Try to make them as character focused as possible. So, but anyway, the inspiration for the books come from, like I said, R.L. Stine, Fear Street, and just a wide variety of. Um, I read a wide variety, horror, thrillers, southern fiction, crime, southern crimes, stuff like that.
Yeah. Have you read any of the Walt Longmire books?
What was it?
The Walt Longmire books. Have you read any of those?
No, I haven't read those.
Yeah, those are good. They're if you like a good mystery, those are good books to read.
Oh, okay.
It was the one where the series Longmire was based off of.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah, yeah. The guy that Craig Johnson, the guy that writes those. Yeah, they're. I've read a few of those. Those are good.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Let's see what else was I going to ask? So, I was going to ask you too. Being from, and I noticed like in Spin the Bottle, your kind of protagonist in that was more of like paranormal kind of supernatural kind of thing in it. Have you ever thought about taking like some of like the folklore from like the Carolinas, like say for instance like the what is it, the Lizard Man of Beaufort and or like the Gray Man in Myrtle Beach? And I think there's another one something about a girl or something about if you walk around a grave so many times, she'll appear looking for her wedding band or something. I was just wondering if you ever thought of something like that as far as like inspiration for your books.
Um, yeah, several of mine are going to have some South Carolina folklore kind of woven in there. The perennials is my first one. The premise of that one is there's a killer who's targeting people who share names with plants like Rose or Lily. But the Lizard Man actually plays a part in there. I mean, it's by no means about the Lizard Man, but it's
Oh,
the
okay.
Lizard Man does play a big part in that story. Um, and the one you were talking about earlier, Hurts Like the Devil, the story of Becky Cotton, that one is set in Edgefield, South Carolina.
Hmm.
But the the story of Becky Cotton, I don't know if you remember or not, but in the book, there's a real life murderess from the 1800s. Her name was Becky Cotton, and she's like I said, she's a real life murderess from um, I don't know I'm not going to get the years right just off the top of my head, but from in the 1800s. And there's
Okay.
stories about her ghost haunting the town and all that. So, but anyway, yeah, Becky Cotton from Hurts Like the Devil. That's based on a true crime and true stories about her ghost and the legend of her. But several of mine touch on different folklore. And there's some that I've made up my own folklore for them. So, in
Mhm. Yeah.
Tethered is the one with the dogs. It's a, but it's about the pack mentality of high school students in a really rural area, and it's got a pack of killer dogs in there. So those two storylines clash together. But part of the part of that title is that the characters feel tied to the place where they're from, and can't they feel tied or trapped, I guess, kind of trapped, but they feel tied to the place, tethered to the place where they're from. So I created. There's a story within the um, county where it takes place that there's these creatures that are made of dirt and twigs and limbs that anytime somebody ever tries to leave, they pull them back. So that's just some folklore about that area in the upstate that I made up and put in that book.
Okay.
So I guess
That
kind of
sounds
like the
cool. Yeah.
towns, like some real, some I made up. So
Nice. Yeah, I want to get that bundle myself. Those are actually the books I haven't read yet. I've read pretty much
yeah,
just about all your Killer Tech books. The only one I haven't read yet is the 86.
yeah.
Um Yep. And I read the all your book. Well, I'm working on Cat House. I haven't finished it yet. Out of the Thrills and Chills horror hall
Right,
or horror bundle there.
right.
But other than that, I've pretty much devoured all the rest of them. So
Yeah. All right, cool.
yeah. One of the things I wanted to ask too, are most of your books actual full novel length, or they're just kind of like, um, are they shorter or whatever?
Um,
Or
they are, well, I mean, I'm not really a stickler for saying like it has to be a certain number of words. I mean, I know with traditional publishing, they expect a novel to be a certain number of words or a novella to be a certain number of words. I mean, me personally, I don't really go by that. I mean, I guess in a way you can kind of just say I do what I want to do, but most of mine are shorter, so that I want them to have a pacing that people, that when you're reading it, you get the, you get that momentum going, that you just want to keep going. So they are on the shorter side. And typically write shorter chapters and shorter paragraphs and shorter sentences as well. I think when I first started out writing, I was very much more long-winded about it, and more descriptive than I am now, um, for good and bad. I I know I structurally, what you're saying about if they're novel length or not. Technically, most of mine I don't think would be technically novel length as far as word count goes, but I do structure mine like a novel, so that it has three acts and those main plot points in there. And I think with it, I think it kind of, um, I mean, I wouldn't call mine novellas because, like I said, they are structured like a novel. So there's a lot going on in those 150 pages or whatever.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I will admit, attested for reading just about most of them. They do keep you interested and keep you going. Like sometimes I'll lay there at night and be reading and don't want to put them down, knowing I got to though.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I want my books to do. I know a lot of people tell me when I'm at events that they haven't read in a long time. Um, and I mean, I love to hear that people who haven't read in a long time, or maybe are just trying to get into reading, pick up one of my books and enjoy it. I want it to be so that they are fast paced and keep you interested. And if you put it down, I want it to be so if you put it down and have to come back to it, if you only have time to read, say like 10 minutes a day, I want it to be so that you can put it down and come back to it and don't have to start back over, go back two chapters to remember what's happening. I try to write so that it pulls you in and just gives you that momentum that keeps you going.
Yeah, yeah. I know what you mean. They definitely do that. I will give you that on that. They keep you wanting to read and see, that's the thing I always used to hate about Stephen King, man. You would write he would start you out, and for about the first 50 or 60 pages, man, he's got you hooked. And then all of a sudden, he'll drop you off in the absolute middle of nowhere. And for about 4 or 5 chapters, you're like, what in the world is this? What am I even
Right,
reading?
right.
And then right about the last 2 or 3 chapters of the book, he ties it all in and makes it make sense. And I'm like,
Yeah,
but it's just like you're reading this stuff and it's just like crazy, it's like,
right, right, right.
I get a lot of my inspiration from a lot of stuff that Poe wrote, but I
Okay.
also like white I also loved a lot of Louis L'Amour books too. And I thought he was great at doing that, drawing you in and keeping you um
It's fun. It's funny that you're saying that because I was at an event last week and I actually talked to several people that that said that they don't typically read horror, and they read westerns. And the more I talked to them, and I realized that it's exactly what you're saying there. That the pacing of those Louis L'Amour and those westerns is that same kind of pacing there.
yeah, yep. That's why I was saying, like, because like if you really look at the Louis L'Amour book, they're not real thick, most of them, and it reads to me more like a short story, but
Right.
it's a long story form, and it just I haven't, in all of his that I read, I haven't read a bad one yet. So yeah, and it's and that's what like one thing too. Like when I try to write, the only I think that the thing I find myself with sometimes is I want to maybe be a little too descriptive when
Um,
I want to tell more of a story. But then
right.
sometimes I feel like if I don't explain what everything is, then I'm going to leave people wondering, like, okay, well, you did all this, but why did he do this or whatever, kind of one of those things. So sometimes it's kind of a hard balance when I'm writing something. I feel like I'm telling too much, but then also I feel like sometimes I'm not telling enough. So it's hard sometimes.
And yeah, and I think one thing that I've started realizing that I do, and I don't know if it was ever really intentional, but with being from South Carolina and all of my books being set in South Carolina, I mean, I've lived in South Carolina my entire life. So um, and just just living in the South, in small town South, there's a lot of stuff that I mean I can't really think of a specific example right now, but there's a lot of stuff that I think some authors would want to explain what they're talking about, but I've realized that sometimes I just write it as it is what it is because that's what um that's that's just what it is. That probably made no sense.
No, 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 I get it. Like, especially if you're from the South, so and you're reading something that's wrote basically in the South, you kind of get it. You don't really have to go and,
Yeah, yeah,
explain a whole lot.
yeah. And I think there have been times earlier in my writing where I felt like I needed to kind of explain what things meant, but then I started, and I don't know if it was intentional or not, but I did start approaching that from more of like an authentic way of writing about describing something. Kind of more of like just like if we're just sitting here talking and I tell you about something that happened down the road, that's how I would write. That's how I've realized I've started writing stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know
that,
if
that
that made
makes sense.
sense or not.
No, no, it totally makes sense because you want it to feel as real and authentic, and it's almost like two people just sitting engaging and having a conversation.
Yes,
And
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
and I started writing in first person present tense several years ago now, um, and I that's just a style that really felt like it was more natural to the way I think about the stories and the way I think about telling the stories is writing in first person present tense from the main character, usually from the main character.
yeah. Yeah, and that's the sometimes I find myself hard where I want to go from jump from like first person to third person sometimes, and and you get to and it's kind of like you walk on a fine line between that, and it's like well, I'm trying to tell it from his point of view, but I'm also trying to tell it from somebody else's point of view too. So it's kind of it's a kind of a balance, and
Right,
sometimes it's hard to you lose yourself in that because you wanna try to explain it to people from like someone else's view, but you're also trying to tell as if you were telling it too. So
right,
it's kind of
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So does question I wanted to ask too. So to like for you, like 'cause, like I said, you use your surroundings and stuff. Does that make that easier for you, or is it just natural for you?
Um, hmm. Well, I think that kind of goes back to kind of like what we were saying. Like if I'm writing about something I mean, I have a farm as well. I grow muscadines and scuppernines. So if I'm writing something about a farm, I I would just usually write it, I guess, in a simplified way. I guess, not over
Yeah.
explaining what anything means. So I don't really know if it's easier or harder to do it that way. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
Well,
I
what?
write
What?
a lot of
Uh,
my books are. I mean, a lot of the characters have interests that I don't necessarily have. Some of the main characters, will have interests that I don't necessarily have. So it kind of, I guess, I kind of approach those books and those characters as like, kind of like. So, well, since I write in first person present tense, I guess it's kind of approaching it like I would think an actor would go into kind of becoming a character that they're playing. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
I, by writing in that first person present tense, and especially when it's involving some interest or whatever that I come up with that the character should have, it may not be something that I'm particularly interested in, but it's fun to do some research and make that stuff seem real for that character. So
Yeah.
So I guess
Yeah.
that answer too is a little bit both ways too. So,
Yeah. Yep, I understand that. And another thing I noticed too, I know I watch your Facebook a lot, and you post these things talking about like sometimes you'll say like, here's an old abandoned building or something on it's kind of like a premise
right,
for something you use in your story. And sometimes I'll drive around, and you'll see these old abandoned factories, and sometimes you want to think like if that building could talk, what stories would it tell? Kind of
right,
like, and like, what are some of the things that happened in there that maybe even like after it was closed and somebody like go in there and have a
right.
party or something like that, kind of, you know, you know. I don't know if you ever watched it, but they did a Netflix series called The Fall of the House of Usher. And it
Uh,
was and they did something like that in there. One of the episodes was called Mask of the Red Death or whatever, and one of the kids in there had a masquerade party inside an old factory or whatever, and it was pretty neat.
yeah, yeah. I haven't watched that one.
That's good. I think you would like it.
Yeah, I need to check that one out.
Yeah. Um. As far as like, I mean, um, what do you think? And maybe you may not watch a lot because, like I said, but what do you think of like most of the horror stuff that comes out today? I mean, are you like a fan of it, or because I always kind of like the old classic stuff, and to be honest with you, man, Vincent Price is probably like one of my favorite actors of all time.
Who was it?
Vincent Price.
Oh, okay. Um, you know, I've always loved horror stuff, horror movies. But I've noticed they seem to go in waves of the ones that interest me. It really seems like that over the decades. It seems like it's just going in waves of ones that really interest me or not. Um, Unfortunately, I think we're in a wave of ones that I'm not really into. um,
Yeah.
but there's a lot that I still like. So there's a lot that I like, a lot that I don't. But I tend to like, as far as horror movies go, I'll forever. I think I'll forever be like '90s horror. That's '90s horror is what I like all the slashers
Yeah.
and the horror movies from the '90s really they don't seem like they took it as serious. I think a lot of the ones now they really just take them really serious. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's like. I don't know. I just kind of feel like it's always been more of like the psychological horrors or thrillers or whatever, the ones that really kind of like play with your mind and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I mean, I do love a good slasher too. I mean, because I'm a big like Nightmare on Elm Street fan, and the Friday
Right.
the 13th movies. And I wanted to ask your opinion. Did you like Rob Zombie's remake of Halloween?
All right. um. Okay. I love Halloween, and I have a very strange taste in Halloween movies. I'll just go ahead and admit it. What my favorite Halloween movie is Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. So, and I know that that's like not a lot of people's favorite. Um, but yes, I love them. So, so
Liked it because I kind of felt like the originals were kind of missing something, and
uh,
I don't know me I kind of felt like Rob filled all that in for me, kind of.
okay, cool, yeah. I mean, I love his. And the second one he did, like I said, it may not be my favorite. I mean, it would be close between it and the original Halloween, but Halloween Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is one of my favorite horror movies, favorite movies in general. So
Yeah, yeah. Um, but in that too, like once you start getting into sequels and everything, it kind of that's like, for instance, like with Friday the 13th, man. I mean, eventually, it's like you're going to run out of stuff to say on
right,
those movies. I mean, how many times can you go to Camp Crystal Lake and kill somebody? That's kind of
right,
like why I kind of like, in a way, like Jason Takes Manhattan, because it was kind of, it wasn't really in his element, and it was one of my favorite of the series, actually.
yeah. I think we might be on the same page then with the horror sequels because I usually my favorite ones are the ones that the sequels that take the concept of what's already been established and just go a different route with it. They end up being my
Yeah.
favorites. Yep.
Oh yeah. Yep. Um, and that's just like, and I like sometimes, like when you take, for instance, like uh The Walking Dead, for instance, that series. I kind of like how they made it where everybody was infected already, and but you didn't know it until, like, you died or whatever. And like you said, because like in that series, like if you just died normally, you would come back. They had to actually shoot you in the head or stab you in the head or something for you to actually die. And which, like, I kind of find that neat, because most zombie movies you have to like be bitten or something to get the turn, and
Right.
like in these it's just like you just die and you come back as a zombie, which is pretty neat, I think.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah.
And as far as zombies go, I've always been more of the fan of the crawling out of the grave zombies more so than the disease, um, the the I guess the virus or whatever zombies.
Yeah. Yep. Nice. Another thing I wanted to ask you too. So, do you use the same publishing for all your books, or do you
Yeah.
use different? Like, because I know I use mostly like Amazon Kindle or whatever
Mhm.
for mine.
Yeah, I all of mine are through Amazon. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
or through
All right.
KDP. Yeah, yeah, KDP. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. I know at one time it was called Create Space or whatever, and
Right.
then they
Yeah,
changed the name of it. Yep.
yeah, yeah. Mine goes
Oh,
back as far as back to Create Space. Yep.
yeah. Um, the only thing I don't like about that is that, like, it limits you to like what you can do as far as, like, well, I mean, if you can have your covers made, you can pretty much upload your own cover, but Like
Hmm.
if you don't really have an idea and you want to use some of their stuff, it's pretty limited on what you can make and everything.
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've had the same guy that's designed my covers. I've been publishing since 2014, I guess. And I had the same guy that's done all the covers for mine over the years. And he designs them and sends it to me as a file, and I upload mine into Amazon or into KDP, and it's good to go. I mean, he knows all the sizes and all of that. I mean, I wouldn't begin to know how to do the cover part.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Now I wanted to ask you, and maybe there's a way around this. I don't know, but like when you order like copies to have for like when you go to festivals and stuff like that, do you still have to do you still have to pay that fee for like the $2 and something, or I don't know how much it is. I guess it depends on the size of your book, but you have to when you order your author copies, you still have to pay for yours.
Yeah, yes.
Mhm.
They're a discounted rate. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I didn't know if there was ways around that, and I just didn't know it or whatever. Um,
No, it's just there on the KDP dashboard where you go to the book and click on it to order author copy. It's the same thing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I actually got some copies of my poetry book coming here, hopefully in the next few weeks or whatever. Um, and I'm offering a bundle on that. I've got a spoken word CD out. That well, I went in and read some of my poetry in the studio and everything, and put like a CD out and everything. And I'm thinking about offering that as a bundle with my poetry book and stuff.
Right. So how many books do you have out?
Well, I have this is the only short story book I have out. It's called Thompson Creek,
Okay.
which is based pretty much the town of Chesterfield.
Uh-huh.
And then I have this book. It's called Finding Myself Again, and that's my poetry book.
Uh-huh.
But what I done was I actually had 3 volumes of poetry out altogether. But I decided to take all of them, combine them, and put them into one. So that way, when I order copies, I don't have like have to order like say 20 copies of this or 20 copies of that or whatever. I've got one book that has everything in it, and I can just order those, and it's like pretty much I'm like don't worry about going to get those other ones. Everything that you want's right here in this one book or whatever.
Right,
So it's
right.
like
Yeah.
you know. So if you kind of look at it, I've got 5 books out, but if you really want to look at it, I kind of consider really only having two because, like I said, I took and combined all my poetry and put it in one
Yeah.
book. So
Yeah. Yeah, and that's I mean, I some of mine may be combined further down the road with the Killer Tech ones or with the Cat House ones into one. Um, I mean, that's it would be further down the road, but yeah, yeah,
yeah,
I know. Yeah.
yeah. And I think I published my first book like maybe around 2016, I think something like
Uh-huh.
that.
Yeah.
Um, and it was it was like a short volume of poetry or whatever. But I I put that out, and it's pretty good. I mean, it sold pretty decent for what I thought it would, or didn't think it would. But it was real popular. And then, like I said, I put out. I don't know. I think a couple years later, I put out another volume, and then the one volume I had there, I kind of put out. I kind of felt like I rushed it, and wish now that I probably would have waited. But um, I guess it is what it is when you look at it in the long run. I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's funny. I was just talking about the other day about maybe doing a writing a remake of one of my first books. So,
Oh, okay.
but no,
Nice.
I mean, I know what you mean though. Am I back?
Hey, you're good.
All right. Somebody called and it knocked me off and they called.
Ah,
Yeah. Um.
that's all right.
Uh. But I don't remember what I was talking about. I
Oh,
don't remember.
you were talking about you were thinking about maybe rewriting one of your earlier books or whatever.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Because what you were saying there about, I know sometimes when I look back at that older stuff, I'm like, God, I wish I would have done this different. Or, but I think you'll always look at it that way. Um, so it kind of just comes to a point where you just kind of got to let it go. And
yeah,
so when I was talking the other day about possibly writing a remake to one, and I would call it a remake to one of my earlier ones. I mean, I'm kind of being serious about it, but you do kind of have to just let it go after some point.
yeah. Oh, in a way, that's a good thing because it kind of shows you an evolution of where you were
Yeah,
then
yeah,
to how
yeah,
you've grown now.
right,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
you know, that's like I'm actually working on a short story, another short story book, but this one's more kind of like thrillers, kind of horrors, or whatever. And
Mm,
there's a story that I had published in my Thompson Creek book that it really out of all the stories, it really kind of didn't fit in. It was more of kind of like a thriller, but
mm,
I kind of felt like, and I've always felt like it never was really finished. Like there were some things I wanted to put into it that I never did. So
right.
when I started working on my short story book here, probably about I don't know, probably about a month back, I went in and I went in and kind of put like a prologue at the beginning of it, and then like kind of like explaining like so basically what I done was I kind of did where he's telling the story from like after all the stuff that happened, kind of like he's kind of telling like so it kind of starts off like we all have regrets and stuff like that, and it
Mm,
kind of explains like the whole thing, and then it gets into the story, and then I got a little thing I kind of want to put on at the end of it from where I actually left off from the original story of like you know almost kind of like what he's doing now, almost kind of a thing. So, so I think that'll add a little something to it
right.
that
Yeah.
wasn't
Yeah.
there in the original.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, it just because I like to pick other people's brains and their ideas and everything about like their writing and like their styles and everything because
Mm,
you know um because sometimes, like I said, I find myself in like writing spots, and I'm like, you know, how would this person do this or
right.
whatever and stuff, and it's
Right.
almost kind of like it's almost kind of like that. I used to wear a bracelet all the time that had WWJWD on it, and it stood for What Would John Wayne Do? You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of one of those things.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's part of the fun. Like, why another reason I like writing from first person. I like putting myself in kind of like in those. I mean, I don't want to be in any of those situations, but you know what I mean. I like to kind of
Yeah,
like, yeah, put myself in those characters. But what you were saying about well, something you said there made me think about, like, typically I write with most of my main characters are teenagers usually, and most of the things that happen in my books could probably be solved by calling the cops.
yeah,
But
yep,
you know, but if the character does that, then it's either going to throw in a whole other. It's going to take the story just in a completely different way, take it out, or you know whatever. So I'm constantly every book trying to figure out ways where they can avoid pulling the cops into it. Because I
yeah,
mean,
yep,
the whole thing could just be solved by calling the cops. So that's one thing that I'm always trying to come up with a reason why they can't. And then cell phones. I mean, cell phones are a big thing too. You know, lots of times. I mean, nowadays everybody has a phone, so lots of
Yeah.
times, you know, it would just be one phone call could solve whatever problem they're in. So there's lots of times where I'm trying to figure out ways why they can't make a call. I mean, some of it's probably repetitive from book to book, but there's got to be some reason there. So,
Yeah. You know, if you're like me, sometimes you go off and like I'll get sometimes halfway to work, and be like, realize, damn, I forgot my phone. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of one of those things. You know, it's like, and then I think of myself, so what would I do in a situation if something happened and I didn't have it? You
right.
know, so
Yeah.
it's one of those things. It's all in, especially too writing, like you say, you write a lot of your stuff is like from a teenage kind of point. I mean, most teenagers probably wouldn't think of that in a way to a certain extent. Like the last thing you would think of, I mean, would be like calling the cops or whatever, because maybe your mindset's not thinking of, well, I don't, because if I call the cops, then I'm like implementing myself or something other kind
Right.
of like
Yeah.
one of those things,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I've had to work exactly that, like what you're saying there. I've had to work that in a few times, like where they're afraid of if they get the cops involved, then they're kind of getting themselves in trouble. So I've had to work that
yeah,
in there a few times. Yeah,
yeah,
and I know even in one of my more recent books, I don't want to say which one just because I don't want to spoil anything about it. But in one of my more recent ones, one of the characters, he's already made a series of dumb decisions, but
yeah,
he and part of his character arc is toward the end. There's a good, perfect opportunity to go to the cops. The cops are actually nearby, um, but he has another thing that has to be solved involving the girl that he likes, and he makes the decision to not go to the cops to try to make sure that everything else is okay first. But he even says that if they get out of this, this is going to be the last stupid thing he does. So that's like part of his
yeah,
character arc that
yeah.
he acknowledges that he's done stupid stuff. So,
Oh yeah, yep. And see, and that's like you said, and that's the thing too. It's almost like, you know, it's like, and then, you know, can sometimes it's almost as, can you really trust the cops? You know what I'm saying? In
yeah,
some of those situations, you know, because I mean, you think about it, and I try not to think that way because I try to always give all of them a benefit of the doubt. You know what I'm saying? But it's like they could be just as corrupt as anybody else, you know, when it
yeah,
comes down to it. And like, what are they hiding? Like, because I actually have an idea in one of my books where um like the cop knows who the murderer is all together, but he doesn't want to say who it is or try to solve the case to a certain extent because in a way he's going to like also get himself in trouble to a certain
right,
extent. So
yeah,
it's one of those kind of things, you know. And you know, and when you really think about it too, like growing up as teenagers, I mean, when you're doing some of the stuff you're doing, you don't think about like, you know, like I'm just gonna go out here and do this stuff, and you know, it's like, I mean, you know, you see these movies on TV, and you're like, the only times they're running from cops is when they're having one of those keggers or something other. And you know they're not supposed to be drinking, but they are anyway. You know,
yeah,
and it's like, so,
yeah,
and like you said, so you put yourself in that situation too. Like, okay, I'm at a party, somebody dies, but now I don't want to call the cops because I'm having a kegger. So it's, you know, it's like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. You know.
right, right, right. Yeah, and I mean, I think some of that too is, I mean, I'm 48, so it's been a while since I've been a teenager, but I think some of that is just kind of have to remember what it was like when I was a teenager. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Yep. Well, I'm not far behind you. I'll be 48 in a few months. So,
yeah,
yep. But yeah, I mean, like, I look back on it because, I was talking to somebody the other day at work and I was like, man, I said, what is it? In 2028 is coming up, my 30th anniversary of being out of high school, and I'm sitting here tonight and I'm like, man, it's time is damn flown, you
yeah,
know, and,
yeah.
and I was like, I'm sitting here thinking about some of that stuff I did when I was a teenager in the high school and stuff. And I'm like, man, I hope some of the people don't do some of the dumb stuff I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
oh man, yep. But those are the things that make for the best stories, though, in a way. And I always try to put and sometimes in some of my stories, I always try to put out sometimes like real life events of like maybe things that actually happened to me or somebody I know or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, it's kind of like a little, so kind of like a little homage to them or whatever it is,
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yep,
People will ask me sometimes if any of mine is based on any kind of experiences I've had, or I mean, none of the none of the storylines as far as like the killer dogs or anything like that is based on anything that's happened to me. But I mean, there's whether I intentional or not, there's little things in there that I'm sure I have the characters do, or something like that that is based on something that I've done, or something from my own past. Whether it's
yeah,
intentional or not, I mean, it's just kind of in there.
yeah. I mean, and that's part of being human, but also being kind of put some kind of realism into your stories too. Some of that stuff is going to bleed out onto the page, I think, and um, because that makes it to me, I feel like that gives it a little bit more authenticity.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I told I told somebody sometimes the best stories have come from those people who lived it. So it's like you know um I also try to find myself at a place to where um I believe that fictional, like, if you can, the cool thing about fiction, and especially like if you go and you make up like a complete different world or whatever, it's your liberties and you can take whatever kind of rules and stuff you want to, and you can put into it, like, you know um whatever. But I also love having that realism feel of like, okay, this like, I spent my childhood playing outside of this house when I was a kid, but
yeah,
never knew that the house was haunted or something like that, or claimed to be haunted. Like, to
yeah,
be truthfully, the house I'm in now, which is my parents' house, the house I grew up, a lot of people swore up and down that this house was haunted, and a lot of people didn't want to come here because they heard that our house was haunted. But I've spent pretty much 40 something years of my life, either in this house or, near this house or whatever. And I've never had anything weird ever happen. But I guess the story told a long time ago, before my parents bought this house, somebody had hung themselves in one of the rooms in the house before my parents had bought it or whatever, a long time ago. And so I guess that's where the whole idea of the house is haunted kind of thing. And I'm like, well, if this house was haunted, that the person that's haunted is doing a terrible ass job at it or whatever. 'Cause I've never had nothing like supernatural or paranormal or anything happen.
there's in my house I I've I mean, I don't know, I've caught glimpses of something that I think is a person standing there, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not jumping to any conclusions and saying what it is or what it is not, but I have out of the corner of my eye caught glimpses of what looks like a person sometimes.
Yeah,
And it
and
could,
and I've heard. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
No, and you know, because I've actually heard people talk about stuff like I have a girlfriend one time that was telling me a really weird story that she had about where she had a nephew that was supposed to, when they were born, supposed to had a twin or whatever, but I guess the twin died or whatever. And she said she's laying there one night and she swore up and down that she saw the ghostly figure of him walk through her room, past her bed, and through the wall or whatever. And I'm sitting here like I'm like, wow, I mean, I think I don't know what I would do. I'd probably I would say I wouldn't freak out, but then again, you know what I'm saying? It's like, so I mean, but sometimes I think a lot of that too is just your whole perception of your body and your mind and stuff messing with you sometimes, I think, you know, from all the shit in the world, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, who knows what people have seen? You know, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I mean, I don't discount it just because it's never happened to me doesn't mean that it's not that it's never happened. You know what I'm saying?
right? Yeah, no, I know. I know. I've been to a couple of Bigfoot festivals. As with my books. And I've listened to the panels on those Bigfoot festivals, and they, you know, some of those people say, well, that they have been out in the woods or somewhere and they saw something, they don't know what it was, that something unexplained. They just saw something. They just kind of, that's it. They don't know. You know, I can get behind that. But
Yeah.
there are other people on the panel that come up with all that say all this other, to me, crazy stuff. It's like, you know, that's kind of like where I don't know. I don't know about if that's, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. You know, and I've heard these wild stories of people talking about like stuff that happens in the Appalachians and stuff like that, you know. Um, and it's just sitting like, you know, they and I've heard, and I've talked to some people that said they some weird stuff that goes on up in the mountains and stuff, man. And it's you know, and so I mean, I can't say this it's not true because I've never lived there and I've never been there, but
Right,
you
right,
know,
yeah.
so
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. That's I mean, if like I said, the guy said at that Bigfoot panel, if he saw something, he wasn't sure what it was, and that was it. I mean, you know, I can understand that. So,
yep. So what's the longest or the furthest you've been to a festival?
um, well, I don't know. I mean, I typically stay around the southeast, but I'm in South Carolina. I um probably, I guess, as far as miles go, I guess Richmond, Virginia. I guess,
Well, okay. Because I
but
was
I
wondering
tip.
if have you ever oh go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was wondering if you ever thought of like trying to go to that the International Pro Festival there in Baltimore.
Um, I mean, I need to get out further to some festivals. But it may be in the future. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, I do need to get out further. But I
yeah.
typically go South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, um, Alabama. I think I've been to Florida once, maybe, but typically around those states there.
Well, and you know, in a way that makes sense though, because I mean, I mean, like you say, I think the more out you get, and people read your books, maybe they wouldn't understand them as much because they're not like, say, for instance, if you was to go to California and you're writing a book, and I'm not saying there's not small towns rural areas and stuff in those places. But like for us, like for instance, like when I read your books, like I can sit here and imagine like a cornfield in the middle of Georgia somewhere. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah, and
or a wheat field or something.
right, and that's why sometimes I wonder, what I was saying, kind of like at the beginning of this, where um, over time I've quit being over more descriptive about some things and just kind of write it as it is what it is. That's the way it is, and
Yep.
doesn't need more explaining or descriptions. But I kind of sometimes I wonder what people that are not familiar with South Carolina or with the small towns here in the South, if it maybe even confuses them if it's not explained a little bit, or do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, no, I exactly would because I look at it like this. I mean, you hear people sometimes say a small town's a small town, but I don't know that I actually agree with that because like I give you an example. Like a small town in New York may not be the same as a small town in, say, South
Right.
Carolina or
Yeah.
Georgia or something like that. And it could be two totally different worlds. And
And
like,
yeah.
so you try to explain something to somebody in a small town from that's living in South Carolina about something in New York, but you try to explain it like as just kind of a generic kind of thing. They're kind of be like, well, what's the big deal about that? But you know what it's like, so and then it's like, so you kind of I kind of feel like in a way, um the descriptive part of that is a good thing, but then again, sometimes like you say, I sometimes I kind of wonder if you leave it up to just like let them figure it out, then maybe they can kind of look at it. Well, you know what? I don't have to picture that in the South. That could be my hometown in
Right.
Connecticut or something.
Yeah. Yeah. And everybody, I mean, people are going to read books different. I get people that tell me some things just I'm surprised that some of the some of the plot or the story that stands out to certain people sometimes about some of my books. Because people will tell me that they wanted to know more about something else. Just the reading buddy, for example, there's something in there, kind of like a subplot, and I've had people tell me that they wanted to know more about the characters involved in that, and I hadn't even thought about going any further into that. But I just think it's interesting
Yeah,
when different people read the same book, and certain things are going to stand out more to different people. It's
yeah,
and different people will take different things away from it.
yeah. And so something I was going to ask you too. So what kind of a musical preference do you have?
I listen to country all the time. So country,
Okay. So
usually for the most part, modern country.
okay. Say I'm a big country fan, but also like I also listen to metal and some classical and
Uh,
different stuff. And so sometimes I kind of like when it comes to like some of the horror stuff. So I hate to say this to a certain extent. You don't always kind of when you think of that, you don't always kind of put the country kind of elements to it, like or
right.
whatever it
Yeah.
is you would is like you're
Right.
listening to something like Metallica or something
Yeah.
like that or
Right.
whatever. But like I also love it too, where like here you are, you're explaining to somebody they're driving down the road and they're listening to Jason Aldean and it's like something happens to them and it's like some monster jumps out in front of them or whatever and it's like so now you kind of taking like the whole like well I would expected him going down the road listening to like Back in Black or something other like that. So it always
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
I love those kind of twists or those little kind of like things you throw in there and it's like
Right.
so that's pretty neat too.
Yeah. I mean, my taste in music has changed over the years. From what I listened to when I was a teenager is drastically different from what I listen to now. But I'm pretty much modern, just modern country. So
That's cool. Um, so yeah, it that was another thing too. So it was like but um, I don't know that I really have any much more to ask or whatever. I just kind of wanted to kind of talk and just kind of like get people like to know you and
Yeah.
your books and everything because I've really enjoyed reading your stuff and it's kind of like opened my eyes up to different ways of writing stuff and stuff like that and just listening to you talk and how you do stuff and everything and basically like I was telling people the reason I do this podcast here that I do is like when you're an independent artist and you're doing everything yourself or an author or anything like that independent, you don't always have that backing of like the big money like these labels or these book publishing companies and stuff like that. And so I just kind of like to have people to come on and try to, come on and tell and say, well, what's it like for you to be independent? What is it like for you to, because I mean, there's good and bad to both.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
you can kind of look at being an independent. Well, if I do all this stuff myself, yeah, I might be financing all this, but if it turns a profit, then I'm getting all the profit where I'm not like sharing 10 or 20% with somebody else. But also too, like where I might be having to do Facebook posts and all this stuff by myself. Where you got the advantage of some of these people, they got a whole team doing all that stuff. So that's the reason why I did this podcast because, like I said, I'm an independent author too, and it's like I just wanted people to like to know, like to have people come on and tell their stories and stuff, and that's why I do this or whatever.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome.
No. So and the funny thing about it is the reason I call it the round table with Bill, I've always been a big fan of like King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. So
Yeah.
and I've always kind of felt like, when you're sitting at a table, I think you're more a group if you're sitting at a table that's round and there's more of a conversation than like somebody that's 20 foot away at the end of the table and 20 foot away at this end of the table. When you got this kind of maybe a small circle and everybody's one kind of like, and so it's almost like a support system kind of like, so,
Right. Yeah.
you know, so so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, man. Cause like I said, I want you to, if I can help support you in any way, you being independent and everything and all that, and try to get more people to know that you're out there and your books and stuff are out there. So that's the reason why I do it, man. Because like I said, it's us independent people, we have to stick together. You know.
Right. Yes. Yep. Yep.
Right. So, man, it's been a pleasure, and I just want to say thank you and all
Oh
that,
yeah.
and good luck with everything, and I hope to see you down the road again.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And you have a good night, brother.
All right. Thanks. You as well. Thank you.
All right, man. Yep.